Arstanali Matkadirov tells us this forest is unique, his voice tinged with awe as he says it. He lives in the world's largest walnut forest in the south of Kyrgyzstan. The ancient forest has grown to cover 30,000 hectares. Arstanali's life is closely entwined with nature.
I've lived off the walnuts since I was a child. That's how we earn our living in the village. The walnut harvest is extremely important for us. It's our main source of income.
At sunrise the next day, Arstanali and his brother Ikram take us up into the hills. Walnut trees grow at an elevation of up to 2,000 meters above sea level. We're in the foothills of the Tian Shan Mountains. The two brothers are worried. Last year's walnut harvest was the worst in living memory. This year is a little better, but a lot of the trees have taken a battering.
The wind broke off branches everywhere. The trees are so old. We need younger trees.
A lack of young trees is a fundamental problem of the Kyrgyz walnut forest. There are very few around. The villagers here have been harvesting the walnuts for generations. They lease their plots from the state. But those very people also put their herds out to graze in the woods, and they effectively gobble up the next generation's trees. It takes 30 years for a walnut tree to grow to maturity. Arstanali Matkadirov tells us that the walnut forest used to be really dense here. And there's also been a lot of deforestation. It may be forbidden, but it's hard to monitor and prevent. The nuts are primarily brought down by young men who climb up the trees to shake their branches until the nuts fall off. There's no alternative here. A risky business, but effective. Then the whole family comes along to pick up the latest harvest. Walnut trees can grow to a height of 40 meters, so shaking nuts out of them is physically demanding and also quite dangerous.
When I'm climbing, I always try to hold a branch in one hand with the other on another branch. Obviously, the higher you get, the more dangerous it gets.
Have you ever heard about an accident in the trees?
I haven't seen any myself, but I know that a few from my village have fallen and some have even died.
Many people build temporary homes in the forest for the walnut harvest. Akbermet Akishova invites us into her tent. The Kyrgyz are traditionally a nomadic people and mostly Muslim. Furniture is rare. Everyone sleeps on mats on the ground, grateful to Allah for their health and a good harvest.
Four of us work here. My two sons, my daughter-in-law, and myself. In a good year, we gather 2 or 3 tons of walnuts. But this year, we've barely collected 300 kilos.
Nonetheless, the markets of Jalalabad are still full of nuts. In the shell, they cost around €2 a kilo. But without the shell, they'll bring €6. So it pays to crack them open. During the Soviet era, all the nuts had to be turned over to the state. These farmers say that's something they don't want to go back to ever again. Reforesting offers a chance of improving future harvests. Abdul Malik Khamraev is something of a village elder here. Everyone goes to him for advice. These small and rather dried-out looking shoots are actually 2-year-old walnut trees.
If there wasn't a fence here, the local livestock would soon be along to graze. You can see that the other side is completely barren. But look at how green and beautiful this is.
Kyrgyz environmentalists have teamed up with Germany's Society for International Cooperation, the GIZ, to try and improve the situation, doing things like putting up fences to keep livestock away from the young plants. The fences are supplied as part of the project. The locals couldn't afford to pay for them. And as traditional nomads, they're also not familiar with them. But Abdulmalik Khamraev says these fences are his gift to the next generation. Zakir Khodja Sarimsakov is an expert on biodiversity in Kyrgyzstan. He supports the GIZ project. He tells us that not everybody around here practices sustainability.
We're busy trying to start a dialogue with the locals who use this forest. People are learning to protect it and to think about the future. That's why we go into schools to give lessons in ecology. We also go into the mosques so that people's behavior changes.
At the same time, the activists also promote other sources of income for the village, such as dried apples or forest-grown herbs. Astanali Matkadirov was able to use this dryer to compensate for last year's catastrophic walnut harvest. No one here can imagine a life without the forest, but in future their focus will be on how to live with it rather than off it.